Hi. Uh, it's like really nice to be for the first edition of DeCAF and at this great venue, and I'm like really glad to see you all here. I know it's a weekday and you have been here for like throughout the day. Um I'm also like really glad to be a part of this lineup, which is also like sort of like a strange feeling for me because uh, I like sort of feel like an outsider over here because like in the sense that I'm not exactly a comic book artist, uh, although like comics are like a part of the series that I'm working on, which I'll get to later in the presentation. But before I do that, like the way I thought that I'll structure this talk is I'll start with a very brief introduction of who I am, what I do, and talk a little bit about my professional background. And I think it's important to mention that because uh, uh, like the 3 or 4 years of me working in the animation of films and gaming industry has like in some way or the other helped me to to come up with the series and to make it what it is. So yeah, if you can, yeah. So yeah. Uh, s- yeah, so as far as like me like calling myself like a visual artist goes, I can't like sort of like trace it all the way back to my childhood because I've been painting and drawing ever since I can remember, and like that's all I did as a kid, like that and play my Nintendo, which I still do. Like nothing has changed like a lot over like over the years, um, and so like after high school I took up commerce, which to this day I'm like wondering why I did that. Uh, yeah, and so like after my 12th, like after I was done with 2 years in commerce, I like signed up for this course, in like this undergrad course in animation filmmaking in Bombay. I won't say which college because it was really shitty, and yeah. Um, so, like in those 3 years, I like worked on and learned like different techniques of animation filmmaking, from 2D cell to working on 3D programs and like experimenting with claymation. Uh, uh, and I made my final year film in claymation itself, and that's where I wanted to make a career. But at that point, like claymation wasn't exactly like a mainstream thing, in like Indian production houses because it's very like time and labor intensive, and like clients would normally like prefer to get like things done fast and for half the price probably, so they like always go for like maybe 3D or like something else which is like much faster. And so I could not like yeah, so I had to like give up like the hope of like working for like a production house which like primarily like dealt with the craft of claymation or stop motion in general. And so I decided to go for the next best thing which which I was good at, which was pre-production. And I worked for somewhere around like 4 or 5 years after graduating in 2011 in I think 4 or 5 different studios. I was a terrible employee. I would just like quit if I get bored and just find a new job. So 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 my role as like a pre-production artist was to be in charge of character design, layout design, background design, concept art, and and like later I switched on to gaming, like which was great for me because yeah, because I loved video games, and to actually work on them and in some ways it's like playing God in a way because you're creating like this virtual world where like where you set the rules, and so it's kind of cool. And so now I'll just like show you like some of the character designs I made like after graduating from college, and uh, or like in the first few places where I worked, and uh, and I'll explain why I'm showing you like this works from long back. Uh, yeah, this is just like a few character concepts that I developed like for this web series that me and a few people were planning, which never got made, but it's okay. Uh, and then I was and like this were like the character concepts for like a 2D like a 2D side scrolling shooter game like Contra or whatever. and it's still under development like for years now. Uh, yeah, and this is again like like the intro screen for like one of the games that I worked on in one of the like in one of the studios like where I worked at some point. Uh, like this one good thing about like being a character designer is that like it like gives you this like immense responsibility to make sure that like whatever you come up with has like a common thread, like you have to figure out like a style which is like which is like pretty consistent like throughout the show or throughout the game, and like everything has to relate to it. If you're working on a game, the backgrounds have to be like somehow in sync or in tune with the way the characters are designed, and so that like teaches you how to have like a like a good command over aesthetics in general, and to come up with like uh, like a style or like a visual reference which is like easily identifiable. uh, and so like this is like what I did for a few years, work in like different places on different projects, just like one of the game screens. And I also worked as a storyboard artist in few places for animation films and live action films. And I think like this was like for me like the point where I really learned how to make comics for my series that I started later. Cause like I wasn't like formally trained like in an art school or a design school. And so like most of it yeah, so like most of the stuff that I've done like over the years is just coming out of like experience or like trial and error. And uh, uh, yeah, but those like few years after college, where I was like working in like different like these places, like they were like kind of like demotivating, like in a way, because they like sort of like box you, and you can't like yeah, like you don't have enough like chance or like potential to grow, or like to or to be better at like what you do, because like you will yeah, because it has happened like so many times where I would be like working and I would like come up with this character concepts for like a TV show or something, and my team lead would like send it to the network, and then later in the day they would get back and my team lead would like come back to me on my desk, and he would go like, Priyesh, like the network got back and they really like our designs, but, and then I'm like, oh shit, like it's never good. Like once they say but, like it's always something bad. And but then he continues that, yeah, but can you try to make it look like a little like Chota Bheem? And I'm like, no, can you go fuck yourself, yeah. And like that's the problem, because they don't want something which is like really cool to look at. Like they just want to like play safe, because like they think that they uh, it's a, yeah, like it's a matter of like commerce and financing as well, because like that's how the network looks at a TV show, and how we, when we work behind the scenes, we look at it as like an outlet for creative expressions. And that it's very hard to find like a point of like equilibrium between these two extremely polar opposites of the process. And also like uh, 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 yeah, like this one thing that I'm sure, like if there's anyone who has worked in this industry like for the last few years, would know that there are like a lot of issues with payments, and like you either get paid on time, or like it's like delayed by few months. And I'm not talking about like me like freelancing. I'm actually talking about like me working in a studio where they just don't pay you on time. And so I was like sort of like done with it. I mean like for them to limit my creativity like was bad enough, and for like to not be rewarded for, in terms of like salary or like financially was the last straw. And like this was like around the time when I was like I was like trying to like just like do or like make this like stupid little illustrations uh, yeah, like on weekends, or like if I get home from work early and if I have a few hours to kill, I would just like make this like very amateur illustrations. And so like these are like some very early works which I hate showing, but it's kind of important like in the context of this presentation. And yeah. And so if there's like someone who's like yeah, so if there are people who are like familiar with Adarsh Balak, and if they've seen it before on Facebook, like like the first thing that would hit you when you like when you look at the works is that it's like very subversive, or it's it's dark, and like that and that like tendency to like subvert things or to take pop culture imagery or uh, and to like turn it over and to turn it over its head was like something that I did even then. But as you can see, like from these illustrations, like they all look like very like diverse and like yeah, like they don't have like a common set of like set of aesthetic, because I didn't know what my style was back then, and this is like something which a lot of visual artists and like illustrators, they often struggle with. Like they want to like come up with something which is just like their signature style, or if like if they show their works to people, then and if those people, they see that person's work like at some point later, then they know where it's coming from. And like this was something I was struggling with, and like in my early years of like illustrating, and and at this point, like I had like quit all the jobs and I was like freelancing for like a few years, and then this thing happened. Like so this was like around like October of I think like 2013, and uh, so so if there's so if there are like people like in the crowd who don't speak Hindi or who don't understand Hindi, this is Adarsh Balak, which like translates to ideal child in Hindi, and the name and the visual style, like they come from these educational posters that we had in school. So like if you so if you were in school in the late 80s and early 90s, I'm sure you must have seen this like these posters which are published by this company called India Book Depot, and like they had so they had like like these posters like stuck around the classroom like of this sort, and yeah, and like we all like we all like grew up like with having these posters around. Like if you're a millennial, I'm sure you must have seen them, and and like and like as a kid, like I didn't like really see or like notice like what's wrong with them. It's only when you like grow older and you like develop like like a more mature like worldview or whatever, you have like a more clear sense of right and wrong, and then when you see these charts again, you know exactly like what they are trying to do. So you can see like how they were like trying to inject like moral engineering or social engineering like in a very subliminal manner, like in these posters. They are so like stereotypical and just like messed up in so many ways. Like if you like if you like just look at the first few panels, like it's still okay. Like the guy's getting up in the morning, like that's fine, but then he's like praying, and I don't know how that's a good habit. To be delusional, but I mean, like I'm like all up for like like religious liberty. I mean, I like really think that people should be free to worship their like their imaginary friend, and yeah, so I won't stop them from doing that, you know. Yeah, and then like if you see like the center panel in the last row, like they see that it's a good habit to join NCC, and like I really want to know why or how, because that just like doesn't make any sense to me. And so you can see like they have like this very ulterior motive, like when they made this like these posters. The next one is like particularly bad for so many reasons. uh, yeah. uh, like the most disturbing part about this poster is that they all look the same, they all look like they have just arrived from Uncanny Valley, with the same creepy face on them, you know. Yeah, this is why you should pay like artists well, and yeah, cause we'll always try to cut corners and yeah, you get what you pay for. But anyway, like that's not the worst part about this poster. Like if you look at like some of like the panels, like they are so like stereotypical, like they are just like they are just like condensed like one aspect of a culture and just made it into like this generalized like view on like how like every person from that state would like dress up as. And uh, yeah, like the kid from Rajasthan has like a sword with him, and that's where my ancestry goes back to. And I never owned a sword in my life. I can see that, and if you like just keep looking like in the last row, and like the second one from left, like the kid from Nagaland is like half naked, and that's really bad because like kids are, or like like kids are like they are more like blank slates, like they only absorb and consume like what you teach them, and it's like particularly like stuff like this that which is like like this or like the starting point of xenophobia like among kids. Like they don't realize it, like but they are nurturing it like like within their subconscious, and like not just xenophobia, but like just to have like a very like narrow view on people which are which by themselves are like so diverse individually. uh, okay, the next one, like there's nothing like really wrong with this poster, like like except for the fact that in the center they are playing like basketball with a football, and I don't know why, for some reason that really bothers me, like seriously, who does that, And I think like this also explains why like for the longest time like the sport of basketball could not become a mainstream sport in India, because everyone was trying to play with the wrong ball, like, and yeah. Um, okay, so yeah, like I said, like when like I like always have this thing for like vintage art. Like there's something like I like find about like like stuff or like art like coming from the past, which is like really like intriguing, and there's a lot that you can like take back from it. And so I like in the back of my mind I was like obsessed with these posters, and like that like it somehow like manifested like this one day when I came back from work. Like that was my last day job, and uh, I had been like looking at these posters for like a while, like around that time, and I was just like in my room, and I was like waiting for my dinner to be ready, and like just out of the blue, like like I thought of this one idea where I thought, okay, like maybe like what if I take this kids, or like a kid which is drawn and painted in a similar way, and just like try to make them do things which this charts would like never show. And so like immediately like I just like thought of this idea where like there's a kid and he is oh, okay. Oh, there's one thing that I like missed out on. See, this is why I should have a preview of like the next panel, like somewhere. So like for this series, like for this Adarsh Balak series, like a part of the inspiration was this old educational Indian posters, and also a part of the inspiration came from like from the propaganda posters of like the Soviet times, or like Maoist China, because like these guys, they have done some really fucked up shit in the past, but but when it comes to like typography and the composition, this guy's killed it. Like it's so good. Like that's why I love propaganda posters, because they like they are like such excellent works of design. Like just like don't look at the message, but just like the technical stuff. It's just brilliant. So like, yeah, so like these two things had like a major influence on my series. And so yeah, going back to where I was, like where like I had this idea to show this kid like doing things that like normal society would not accept, or they would not condone and show in those charts. I made this illustration where he's rolling a joint, and which is the best habit you can like possibly like cultivate. Yeah, that's like real Adarsh Balak. So I just like made this like really quick. Like this was just like a random thought that hit me, and I thought, okay, like I have to like just like let it out on paper, and like this illustration was supposed to be like much larger. So like the initial idea was that I'll like this kid is like rolling his joint, and there are his friends like around him, and they are waiting for him to like finish rolling, and they are like waiting with bags of chips and like cola bottles, and they just want to like chill. But like after I was done with with painting this kid, I thought maybe I should like see how this is received, and like what like people think of it. And so I just added like the text on top, which in Hindi is like say toke in English. Yeah, so if you hang around with a lot of stoners, like you would know that they, like when they meet each other, they don't say let's smoke, they say let's talk, and that's where it comes from. So it's a part of like stoner lingo, stoner subculture. So I made this and I put this up on my personal profile because I didn't have a page back then. Like this was not like a series like back then. Uh, yeah, this was more like a precursor to the series, and just immediately like all my friends, like they started to like it, share it, and like their friends started to share it, and just spread. And that was like my uh, like, for the lack of a better word, it went in like viral. I hate that word viral, but I can't think of any other word to like describe like 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 what happened on Facebook with this work. And so like when I saw that happen, like I like that gave me like an sort of like an initial sense of what I can do with this style, and and how I can like spawn it into like a proper body of work, which I didn't do for like a few months, and because I was still caught up with some commercial works, and 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 like this was like also like the answer that I was looking for, like for the longest time, is to find my own style. I mean, this is not my own style. I've actually borrowed it from the posters, but yeah, like in some ways it's my style, but yeah. So like after a few months, like which was I think like later next year, this was in October 2013. It's a little blur, but yeah. So I officially started the page in May 2014, and this was the first work I made, um, where they are like just out on the street and just like vandalizing, and like till this point, like till the point I made this work, like the page had like a very in like fairly limited reach. Like it didn't exactly like spread on Facebook, and stayed like that for like a week or two, because a lot of people, like they were either not familiar with the iconography, like the symbol on the wall, uh, or maybe it was just too dark for them and they just like left. But so after like a week or like 10 days, I made my next illustration for the page, like which was responsible for it to just like snowball on like social media, and like become what it is now, which is this one. And yeah, that's not a joint, that's a pen. His pen broke. Okay, yeah. Anyway, yeah, so like there's also like a reason why I like call this project Adarsh Balak, because like I said, in Hindi, no, that's Hindi, and in English it means like an ideal child, and that's what I wanted to do with this, with this project, because I wanted to like in some ways, like just like reverse, like like the indoctrination that we went through with those posters, uh, and and like try to like provide an antidote in a way. So it's more like reverse propaganda. It's more like subversion of those posters, and and most of all, it's my attempt to like redefine what the word means, like to be ideal, like what's the notion of like being ideal. And like the old posters, like the original ones, they would like ask you to believe that that you are like a nice person, or you are an ideal person only if you like conform to the norms and conventions that like which like society dictates, like by and large. And like any kind of deviation is considered uh, to be like detrimental, like to the way like the society works. And that's what I wanted to change with this works. So like my idea was that like you are like truly ideal like only if you do what you believe in, and you don't succumb to what's been like force fed to you, and just to like create your own value system. So this project is just about like non-conformity, and to stress on like individualism, and like to make your own choices, and to realize that the whole concept of like right and wrong, I mean, like there are things which are like objectively wrong, but then there are things which are like which like you've just been told that they're wrong, and you don't like give it like a second thought. And so that was the whole idea of like calling this project Adarsh Balak. And so yeah, like I said, like when I put this work up on Facebook, like it started to spread, and this made me realize that that people like they are more likely to view and share things which have like a narrative format to it, because it's like kind of hard to like condense a story into just one painting. Like sometimes you have to like break it down into 2 panels or like 4 panels, as I'll show you later. And uh, so like this is like in so many ways the first comic I ever made. I'm not even sure if it's, you know, if it qualifies to be a comic, but yeah. But anyway, so like after I realized that that like people have a taste for comics more than like illustrations or paintings, I started to like juggle between like just like single panel works and like multi panel works, and which I have been doing for the last which I've been doing for the last 3 years, and yeah. Yeah. So yeah, so I'll just like quickly like just go through all the works because like we are sort of short on time. There are like a few other things I want to like talk about after like I'm done with like with this slideshow. Yeah. So, yeah. Oh, this is my favorite one, like so far, and it's like kind of like ironic in a way that that this work actually ended up in a gallery in Bombay, and they all loved it. Like for some reason, they love it when you take a shit on them, you know. Right? Yeah. Yes. Uh, and with some works, I try to like address like certain issues. Like I hate the concept of like 24 hours news media, because then it turns into like a factory, and they will find like the most mundane of things and just like try to like churn out news like from it, and like that's not like the nature of news. I mean, it's just meant to be for information, not to like perpetuate it. And also like the kind of like news that they actually let out, which is always like too cynical, too negative, and that was the motivation behind this painting. Uh, yeah, this is again like one of my favorite comics. I have like zero tolerance for conspiracy theories, uh, and for conspiracy theorists, you know, with those tin foils on the head, and like I just like how they think, you know, like they think that like there are like 13 families like who are like actually controlling the world, but then they also think that the world leaders are stupid. So how can you have have it both ways, you know, like stupid people controlling the world? That just like doesn't make sense. So, yeah, this is again like one of my favorite works. It's not exactly ideal, but like it's just for the sake of dark humor, and you know. I'm sure we all want to do that, but no, yeah, because this is what I saw in the comments, like on my page when I put this work up, that like so many people were like, I wish I'd done this to my school, and like yeah, this is yeah, yeah. So like my experience in like working as a storyboard artist has like helped me a lot in like making this comics, because I don't use words. I think they are like better off like, you know, when it's just like silent. And like in my experience of like designing comics, I realized that it's not what you show which is like more important, but it's what you leave out like between the panels, you know. So you know, like to fit like a small gag like this into like 4 panels can be like a little tricky, and you just need to know like like what part have like you have to show where and how, like to be able to convincingly convey your idea. And yeah. So as the project grew, I like the works, they started to find like newer avenues to reach public, and which was like in galleries or like at art fest. So I had to like scale up in size. Like all the earlier works, they were all like watercolors on paper, and this one is like all on canvas, like much bigger, because they had to be shown in a different setting altogether. And yeah. Yeah, this is where like 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 my influence like from like propaganda posters come like into like the series, and this is again my like one of my favorite works ever. Yeah. This is like a fan art I made for Rick and Morty. Like, are there any Rick and Morty fans in the house? Okay, that's great. It's the best show ever. And so I'm not like a big, yeah, I'm not like big into fan art, but like this is one show that I could not stop myself to like pay tribute to. And this is still like a recent work. So if you haven't seen Rick and Morty, like all the episodes, you will not get like most of the inside jokes in this work. But anyway, yeah, yeah, yeah. This is actually like the most honest reflection of how I think. You know? Yeah, and yeah, this is just like something like really stupid I made. Uh, Okay, so in the last 3 years, I have like collaborated and worked with a few people like around Bombay or in a few other cities, like mostly in India, and a few projects like internationally. And uh, so I'll just like quickly like just like run you guys through like some of the stuff I've done. Like it's not like all of them, but just like the handpicked ones, the ones which I really like, which I loved working on. So the first one was like this poster for like a metal band, and when they were touring, like when they were touring, I think in like 2014, this band from Bombay called Bhayanak Moth. I don't know if there are any fans over here, and so they have this track in the album called I Am Man, and so like the like since the whole point of the series was to like get rid of social stigma about like certain taboo subjects, like sperm donation is still like something which is seen like in a very weird way in India. So like the kid is like selling his sperm to get money so that he can buy concert tickets for his friends, and which is yeah, which is fine. Like if you love the band, yeah. Oh, this is like in like an event poster I made for this like for this design organization based in Bombay called Design Fabric, and they had this thing called LORES, which is like a student initiative where they would pick students from like different parts of the country and make them collaborate with like companies around India. Like and this was like before they graduate and they get a job, so that they have some exposure to how things work in an industrial setting. And I try to like to experiment with like different styles and still like work within the space of Hindi typography or the 80s visual style or whatever. This is how I actually like made it, like with all the parts like painted like separately, and then you put them all together and just make this like collage kind of thing. This is like an album cover I made for this band from Bombay, which is like a ska slash reggae slash funk band called the Fan Killers. It's still a recent work. Uh, and yeah, this is just like a rough sketch, like the process, like how I start. Yeah, this is like the last like major thing I worked on, which was like a few months back. So this project was like a collaboration between UK and Indian artists, or UK based and Indian artists, and so it was like a collaboration between between British Council and Aardman Animations, like who are responsible for shows like Shaun the Sheep and Wallace and Gromit, based in Bristol in UK. And this was a part of this much larger bilateral cultural exchange called UK India 2017, which I think is still going on. So how it worked is that so they had like a group of illustrators, like 3 from UK and 4 from India, and uh, like how it worked is that like they would give us like the first line of a story to illustrate, and we would make the illustration and make it public on like our social media channels, their social media channels, and then like the next line of the story comes from people, and that's how the project builds up. Like we make an illustration, we make it public, and then we get the next line. So like in a way it's like really interesting because you never know where the story is going, and that's the fun part, and also like the challenging part about this project. Uh, so this is like the illustration for week 1, and you won't like exactly know what's going on like till you see the text which was given to us like to like illustrate this or the story. But short on time anyway, so yeah. I don't know if it's blur or is it me looking at it from this angle, but yeah. Mm. So it went on for like 2 months for a period of like 6 or 7 weeks, and it's there on the British Council website, like the whole thing with the works of the other like the other illustrators who worked on this project. So you can like just check it out there. This is like a recent work I made where I'm going back to like old vintage Indian art and just trying to like subvert it or like make it dark or twisted. So this is like a part of the new body of work I'm still working on, where I'm just like working with Indian classics or those old ads from like old Indian ads like in magazines from the 80s, and just like just for like to have like a commentary on the nature of advertising or whatever. So like this is something that which which I've just begun, so there's not a lot to show. Um, I think that's pretty much it, and so thank you. Yeah.